All right, so we'll say good morning. Let us begin. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors, our TALMUD TORAH sponsors for the month of Adar. To thank Stephen Teri Czinn for dedicating all of his Shirman Roshos this month in memory of Teri's father, Tzvi Hirsh ben Yosef HaKohen, and to thank Paul and Kathy Pollack for dedicating all of his Shirman Roshos this month in memory of Paul's grandparents, Zechariah ben Zechariah, Dinah bas Pesach. We hope that on the merits of our TALMUD TORAH, all of the neshamas will have an aliyah and the families in Nechamra. Well, so with that, let us begin. We have some really, really interesting Gemara, really fascinating Gemara, riveting Gemara, overwhelming Gemara today, Meretz Hashem. Some really interesting halachic sugyas as well. Today's daf is Nun Ches 58, and we are picking up in Meretz Hashem on the bottom of Nun Zayin, with base 57b, 3 lines up from the bottom. Lema. Hakafas harosh tenai. So we'll say, so remember again, we kind of switched gears a little bit over here after we were dealing with the halachos. So remember again, let me just point out, we were introduced to an interesting case in the Mishnah. We just had the schus to begin the new parak yesterday, and our Mishnah was talking about a case of two Nazirim, right? Two Nazirim walking down the street, minding their own business, and then what happened? Ruvain says, listen, one of you guys became Tameh, I don't know which one. The Mishnah outlined the process for their purification. One of the things that came up is after 30 days, they both have to shave their head. So the Gemara said, 1 second, that sounds like a nice solution. The problem is, if you shave your head and it's not under the umbrella of actual halachic legitimate nazirus, you are in violation of an Isser D'Oraisa. So that then, once again, kind of led into the discussion about hakafas kalarosh. Maybe it's not. Maybe the only Isser D'Oraisa is what? Is the actual shaving of the sides and the leaving of the top. But halacha l'maisa, if you shave the whole head, maybe that's not the Isser D'Oraisa. Okay, so I'll say, so that's how we got into it. After that, it kind of segued into a conversation about a katan. Oh, before I get to that, the truth is right. The Gemara explained that it must be that the cases of the two Nazirim in the Mishnah, who are the two Nazirim? An Isha and a katan. Neither of whom are subject to the law of hakafa. Then the Gemara said, 1 second. A katan may be subject to the laws of hakafa, which is where we ended off yesterday with the interesting machlokes between Rav Huna and Rav Ada bar Ava. So we'll say, says the Gemara, Lema hakafa kalarosh tanahi. Maybe Rav said the act of shaving the head in its entirety is in fact an Isser D'Oraisa. Maybe shaving the entire head is a machlokes tanoi. I should say differently. Maybe whether or not it's an Isser D'Oraisa is a machlokes tanoi. You might listen to this. Also, it's so interesting. Rosho. So we've actually had a lot of this already. So remember again, I will say the pasuk over here is talking about by Mitzorah. Torah says that halacha l'maisa at the end of his tzaras, vayah bayom hashvi'i, yigalach es kol sa'aro es rosho ve'es sekano. At the end of his process of Mitzorah purification, he has to go ahead and shave all of his head, all of his hair, and then it says his head and his beard. So I will say, obviously, the pasuk is redundant. Because if you're telling me already that the Mitzorah has to shave all of his hair, what does that by definition include? His head. So therefore, why the need to restate head? So the Gemara says, Rosho, ma Talmud lomar. Why does it have to say Rosho? Here we go. The fish shenemar lo sakifu paas roshchem. So I'll say roshechem because the pasuk says, do not round out the corners of your head. Top of Nunchas, Yachol af Mitzorah came. You might have thought that this applies to a Mitzorah as well. In other words, Rabbi Shmuel Silber saying is like this. When the pasuk by Mitzorah says, V'haya bayom hashvi, yigalach es kol sa'aro, I might have thought, what does that apply to? All the hair on the body except the corners of the head. Right? Since again I have a pre-existing Isser D'Oraisa, not to round out the corners, I would have thought that even by the Mitzorah, when he goes and undergoes his purification process and his hair shaving, maybe his hair shaving is for the rest of his body, but it does not apply to the corners of the head. Talmud lomar Rosho. Therefore, the pasuk comes along and says, no, Rosho. But so what does Rosho teach me? Rosho teaches me even the corners of the head. So therefore, I will say something very interesting is happening over here. That essentially, the shaving of the Mitzorah sets aside the Isser D'Oraisa of Hakafas Harosh. So I will say, as we're going to see, this becomes a classic case of Aseh Dochelos Aseh. right? Positive obligation, positive commandment of V'hayabayam Mashiach galach es kol sa'aro es rosho asay sets aside the lo saseh of lo sakifu pa'as roshchem. Fine. V'tanya yidach. What's the other opinion says? Another brayso. Rosho. What does it mean when it says Rosho? So they will say, good. Fine. So what does it mean, Rosho? Tanya idach, ma tamad lomar, lefi shenemar gabi Nazir, tar lo yavro al Rosho. They will say, since by Nazir, the halacha is, Nazir cannot pass a razor over his head. I.e., a Nazir is not permitted to cut his hair. So Yachal af Nazir mitzorah came. So we'll say, you might have thought this also applies to a Nazir who becomes a mitzorah. So what happens if the Nazir becomes a mitzorah? I might have thought, well look, sorry, we're stuck. In other words, a Nazir who becomes a mitzorah cannot cut his hair at the end of the tzaras purification process. To which the Gemara says, Tamad Lomar, Rosho. Ultimately, again, the pasuk says, Rosho, that a Nazir who is a mitzorah is permitted to go ahead and cut his hair. So the Rabbi say, watch what's happening over here. So two different brises, right? In brisa number one, the Torah is the brisa is telling me, why does the pasuk by mitzorah have to say Rosho if you already said what? If you already said Sa'aro? And the answer is, because had it just said Sa'aro, I would have thought, what does it include? What does it include? The hair of the body. What doesn't it include? The sides of the head. Therefore, the pasuk says Rosho to teach you that what? That halacha l'maisa, even by mitzorah, you round out the corners of the head. Why? Asay doche lo saseh. Brisa number two. Why does the pasuk have to say Rosho by mitzorah? Because I would have thought that what? A Nazir who becomes a mitzorah. Since the pasuk by Nazir says tar lo yarva rosho, you cannot have a razor pass over his head. I would have thought that yes, even true, even if the Nazir becomes a mitzorah, he can't shave his head. Talmud Omar Rosho. Fine. So we'll say, so what's going on over here? Watch this. So the Gemara said, "My lav tanoihi." Are we not dealing with the case of machlokes tanaim? How so? Leman damer min Nazir. So let's listen to this. So the one who learns out from Nazir, this is the second brayso. The one who learns out from Nazir, kasavar hakafas kolarosh loshma hakafa. This opinion holds that in general, a shaving of the entire head is not called the rounding out of the corners. V'chi asakra. Therefore, also when the pasuk comes along, when the pasuk is coming to do what? Lemitri es lo saseh v'aseh. So Rabbi say he holds that really meikar adin, rounding out, right, shaving the entire head is not the Isra hakafa. And therefore, we'll say, what is the pasuk coming to teach me? The pasuk by Nazir is coming to teach you. The pasuk by Nazir Mitzorah is coming to teach me that naseh of Mitzorah, which is right, the aseh is cut all of your hair, is coming to set aside a lo saseh and an aseh. Now, what's happening over here? We'll say, take a look at the rush for just a moment. Yeah, actually, it's at least in my Gemara, it's right across in the rush, left hand column. Man demoki la ben Nazir savra kafas kol shloshma kafa hilchach lemitzorah greda lo itzterich de'in kan hakafa. So we'll say, now watch this. See, the author of the second brayso will say like this. In general, I don't need Rosho, the Rosho of Mitzorah, to teach me that a Mitzorah could shave his entire head. Why not, Rabbi? Because this opinion holds that the shaving of the entire head is not an Isur D'Oraisa. So therefore, in a stam case of Mitzorah, I don't need Rosho to teach me that I say docha lo saseh. Why not? Because there's no lo saseh when you shave the entire head. Okay? So therefore, I will say back to the Rosh, then kana kafas umukila benazir Mitzorah di kalav de lo yavor vasei de gadol parab. I will say, now watch this. However, when you have a Nazir who becomes a Mitzorah, so I will say, now I have a problem. What's my problem? See, a Nazir, I will say, has two things going on. Number one, there's a lo saseh. What's the lo saseh? Don't shave your head. The razor can't pass over your head. What's the aseh? You have to let your hair grow. So we'll say, now watch this. So therefore now, we'll call him Ruvain is a Nazir. Ruvain, the Nazir, becomes a Mitzorah. Now he's at the end of his purification process. He's got to do a full shaving. What's the problem? I have an aseh of Mitzorah that requires a full shaving. But by Nazir, what do I have? A lo saseh, don't cut your hair, and aseh, let your hair grow long. I will say, what does Rosho by Metzora teach me? Rosho teaches me that the aseh of the Metzora shaving his hair is docha, a lo saseh, and an aseh of Nazir. Wow. If that's not a drasha, that's a masterpiece. That is a masterpiece. That's like a Talmudic Picasso. Look at that. In other words, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So I'll just understand a lot of stuff was just packed into that drasha. So I'll say, so the author of the second Baisa will say like this: I don't need the Rosho of Metzora to teach me that a Metzora could shave his head. Why don't I need that? Why don't I? Because this opinion holds Hakafas Kalarosh is not an Isur D'Oraisa. The only Isur D'Oraisa is what? Is what? Rounding out the corners and leaving the top. So when the Metzora is shaving his whole head, that is not an Isur D'Oraisa. I don't need Rosho for that. What do I need Rosho for? For the case of a Nazir who becomes the Metzora. Because now I will say the clash I have is a Nazir has a lo saseh and aseh. Again, lo saseh, don't shave your head. Aseh, let your hair grow. And now I have Metzora. There's an aseh to shave that. What do I do with the clash? Comes Rosho to teach me that the aseh of Metzora will be dochel the lo saseh and aseh of tzara, of Nazir. Incredible. So the Gemara says, V'idach, I will say the author of the first price, and I remember again, the author of the first price has said that Rosho teaches me that what? Rosho teaches me that a Metzora could shave his entire head. I will say, what does that tell you? V'idach savra kafas chalarosh shma kafa. The opinion of the first price holds that no, shaving of the entire head is in fact an Isur D'Oraisa. And therefore what? V'chi asakra lemitri lav gereda. And therefore I will say the pasuk Rosho, the word Rosho, is coming to what? The word Rosho is coming to teach me that halacha l'maisa, Rosho is coming to teach me that halacha l'maisa, a Metzora is permitted to shave his head. Because I will say, just according to the first brisa, in a regular case of stam Metzora, I have a clash between what? An aseh d'oraisa and a lo saseh d'oraisa. What's the aseh d'oraisa? V'gilach v'hayab yamashi yigalach es kol saro. Metzora has to shave his whole head. What's the lo saseh? Rounding out the corners. Rosho comes to teach me that the aseh is docha lo saseh. Incredible. So I will say, so therefore what the Gemara has just done successfully, at least it appears successfully, is to show us that the issue of hakafas kalarosh, shaving the entire head, is that an Isur D'Oraisa or not? It's a machlokes tanoim. Okay, beautiful. So Amar Rava says no. The chuli amada kafas kalarosh lo shma hakafa. So we'll say Rava wants to suggest that in reality that is incorrect. Rava says in reality everyone agrees that halacha l'maisa hakafas kalarosh, a shaving of the entire head, is not called hakafa. In other words, that is not the Isur D'Oraisa. That is not the Isur D'Oraisa. V'chi asakra. And therefore, I will say again, when you have the pasuk of Rosho by Metzora, what is that coming to teach me? This is very interesting. Kigon shehikif ulubasov gilach. So I'll say, listen to this interesting case. I'll say, so again, Rav is coming along. Rav is saying that everyone agrees hakafas kalarosh is not hakafa, and therefore I will say halacha l'maisa. There is no Isur D'Oraisa when you go ahead and you cut your entire head, you shave your entire head. So what is Rosho of Metzora coming to teach me? I will say, watch this. Let's see your Metzora. And I will say, what do? You do your haircut in two parts. Part one, chelik one, is you shave the sides of your head. Right? You hear this? Right? Part one of the haircut is you shave off the sides. Part two is then what? You take off the top. So watch this, Rabbi say. Listen to this. Kevan de ilu galch. So what's the shaila in this case? Shaila in this case is Rabbi, have you just violated something? In other words, Rabbi, the typical case of a Metzora is how is he getting his haircut? At once. In this case, Rabbi, see what's happening over here? Stage one of the haircut is take off the sides. Break for lunch. Right? Stage two is take off the top. Shabbos say, what do you do with a case like that? So the Gemara says, listen to this. Since if you were to go ahead and shave the entire head at once, there would be no Isser. Therefore, Rava wants to suggest, Rava wants to suggest, therefore I will say in this case also, we do the haircut in two stages, shave the sides, lunch, and then take off the top. there's no Isra D'Oraisa as well. To which the Gemara says, 1 second. Umi kras kasaf krahachi. But we'll say, but the pasuk doesn't say that. What does the pasuk say? The pasuk says he'll shave his head, right? Which sounds like, how is it happening? How is it happening in one fell swoop? Both say, furthermore, Vamrei Shlakish is incredible. We had this before. Komakom shata motzi aseh v'lo saseh. But remember again, whenever you have a clash between an aseh and a lo saseh, im ato yochol lekayim es shnehem mutav. If you have the ability to fulfill them both, great. V'im lav, if not, yavo aseh v'yitches lo saseh. Then we say that aseh is docha lo saseh. In other words, Rabbi say, even for this haircut, in other words, I got it. I have an aseh and a lo saseh that are technically butting heads. So I'll say there isn't a way, according to Rava, to sidestep the entire thing. What's the way to sidestep the entire thing, Rava say? Shave your whole head at once. If you shave your whole head at once, Rava holds, hakavas kol arosh is not the Isra D'Oraisa. The Isra D'Oraisa is only shaving the sides. So there is a way to fulfill the mitzvahs aseh of the full head shave without violating the Isra D'Oraisa of rounding out the corners. So therefore, we would never allow someone, Rabbi say, to first round out the corners and then afterwards remove the top. But it's aseh docha lo saseh, right? So I'll say it's true. When do we say aseh docha lo saseh? When do we say that? When do we say that? When there's no choice. In other words, when it's impossible to fulfill both. But if it's possible to fulfill both, then we don't say aseh docha lo saseh. If that's the case, taking a haircut where you first round out the corners, then take off the top, that doesn't make any sense. Ella, the chuli alma, hakafas kalarosh makaf. Therefore, say the Gemara pivots. Versus in reality, hakafas kalarosh, right? Shaving the entire head is called hakafa. So I'll say this is called ultimately again a rounding. In other words, it is an Isra D'Oraisa. So even if you shave the entire head, that is an Isra D'Oraisa. So I'll say now watch this. Uman demokim lekra lemitchilo sasei va'asei. I will say the author of the second brisa, who said that, remember, Rosho of Mitzorah comes to do two things. What does it come to do? Comes to set aside an aseh and a lo saseh. Right? Remember again that Rosho comes to teach me about a Nazir who becomes a Mitzorah. Technically speaking, when it's time for the purification of his saras and the shaving of his head, he is faced with an aseh and a lo saseh. What's the aseh? Grow out your hair. What's the lo saseh? Don't cut your hair. So Rosho says that even if you're a Nazir Mitzorah, you could take your tzaras haircut. So lav greda minale. So we'll say, interestingly enough, so we'll say now the Gemara is pivoting again. We're pivoting on the pivot. This is great. So now remember again, we were talking about two different interpretations in the Brisa, ultimately again of the word Rosho. What do you do with Rosho? What kind of drasha? But I'm saying now, in this iteration of the machlokes, everyone is agreeing, actually in this iteration there's no machlokes, everyone is agreeing that akavas kalarosh ma'akava. Right? So everyone is agreeing, shaving your entire head is in fact a violation of the rounding of the corners of the head. Everyone is agreeing to that. So Rabbi say, so now here's what's interesting. So now, if we just look at the mechanics of the two brisas, so Rabbi say, the second brisa taught me that an aseh could be docha, a lo saseh, and an aseh. Right? So Rabbi say, according to the author of that second brisa, where does he learn out just stam that an aseh is docha lo saseh? Just now we're pivoting about say. Just again, author of the second brisa. Remember again, author of the second brisa said you have the extra word Rosho by Mitzorah. What does the extra word Rosho by Mitzorah teach me? That if you have a Nazir who is a Mitzorah, remember again, if you're a Nazir, what do you have going on regarding your hair? What do you got? Two things. What do you have? Number one, right? And I say, what's the aseh? Grow it out. What's the lo saseh? Don't take a razor to your head. So now I'm a Nazir who becomes a Mitzorah. So we'll say, so now what do I have? I have an aseh as a Mitzorah to shave my hair, and I have a lo saseh and an aseh by Nazir not to touch my hair, to let it grow. So therefore we'll say the extra word Rosho teaches me that the aseh of Mitzorah is docha, the aseh and lo saseh of Nazir. Beautiful. According to that author, I will say, but where do I know just a stam case? Let's downgrade it a level. What about just a stam case of where there's a clash between an aseh and a lo saseh? How do I know that aseh is docha lo saseh? So say, now watch this. This is incredible. So the Gemara says, Mina Yalif Migedilim. It's beautiful. Once we had this before. She learns that from Tzitzis. From Tzitzis. Everybody's right. This applies to it. It says, the Amar Kra lo silba shatnis. Supposed to say, the Torah says, don't wear shatnis. And then remember again, right afterwards, the pasuk says, Semer ufishtim yachtov, right? White wool and linen together. And right after that, the pasuk says, that what? Make tzitzis. Make tzitzis. So therefore I will say, watch this. So lo silba shatnis v'tanyo, lo silba shatnis hagidilim tasa l'chamehed. I will say, the notion of the juxtaposition between tzitzis and shatnis teaches me that as much as you can't wear shatnis, tzitzis can be made of shatnis. In other words, you can have a wool beged with linen tzitzis, or vice versa. Or vice versa. So I will say, now watch this. Now remember again, what does that teach you? What does that show you? Asay, docha lo sasay. The asay of tzitzis is docha the lo sasay of shatnis. Beautiful. So that's what I will say. So therefore, the author of the second brisa, who understands Rosho, is teaching me the concept of an asay, docha lo sasay and an asay. He will learn asay, stam asay docha lo sasay from tzitzis. From tzitzis. Beautiful. Umad dinafkele mirosho. My time alone nafka migidilim. So I'll say, but according to the opinion who holds that Allah lamaisa, that he learns out asay docha lo sasay just from Rosho, why doesn't he learn it out from tzitzis? In other words, why is Rosho the source for asay docha lo sasay? Why not learn out from tzitzis? To which the Gemara says, "This is incredible." Amar lecha l'chidravu da'asa. Because I will say, ultimately, again, he uses the drasha of tzitzis to teach us something different. The statement of Rava. I will say, what did Rava say? This is incredible. This is actually incredible. The Gemara says, "The Rava Rami Ksiv." Because I will say, Rava contrasts the two psukim by tzitzis. What does the pasuk say? On one hand, it says, "V'nosnu al tzitzis hakanaf." So I will say, on one hand, it says, you will place the tzitzis on the corner. Now, I will say, now what does this mean? Min knaf psil trelas. Uksiv semer ufishtim yachtov. It says wool and linen together. So we'll say, when you look at the psukim, it's not exactly clear what are the tzitzis themselves supposed to be made of. Are the tzitzis made of the same material as the beged, or as the tzitzis ultimately made of wool and linen together? Which one is it? So we'll say, this is actually incredible. This is actually halacha l'maisa. Ha-ketzad, semer ufishtim, pochim be'maminon, bein shlobaminon. I will say, if your tzitzis are made of wool or linen tzitzis work with a beged of any material. Of any material. Right? So again, I will say, if your tzitzis are wool or linen, it makes no difference what your beged is made of. Wool, linen, cotton, silk, doesn't make any difference. If your tzitzis are wool or linen, it works. Says the Gemara, listen to this. Shar minin, b'minan potrin, shelo b'minan einan potrin. So let's listen to this. It's actually fast. And it's halacha l'maisa. It will say, you can make tzitzis out of other materials than wool and linen. As long as what? As long as the tzitzis themselves are the same material as the beged. So in other words, you can make silk tzitzis as long as your beged is silk. You can make cotton tzitzis as long as your beged is cotton. So therefore, again, the other opinion doesn't learn how to say docha lo saseh by tzitzis, because ultimately he uses these psukim for a totally different drasha. And the drasha is, tzitzis made of wool and linen will work with the beged made of any material. Conversely, if you have tzitzis made out of other materials, it works as long as what? As long as what? As long as the beged is made of the same material. Okay, just an interesting halachic detour over here. So the Gemara goes weiter. So the Gemara says, "V'haitana demafik l'rosho l'lav greda." So we'll say fine. So the Tana who holds that Rosho teaches me asay docha lo saseh. Das yaseh v'docha is lo saseh v'aseh minayin. So we'll say, so now the opinion who holds that Rosho. So we'll remember again, this is the author of the first brisa. The author of the first brisa holds that hakafas kala rosh is an isidaraisa. Therefore, I will say, remember again, he uses the asay of Rosho to go ahead and tell you that you could do hakafas kala rosh, asay docha lo saseh. Where does that opinion know that you could also have a case of asay docha lo saseh va'asay? Where does he learn that out from? So now watch this. Nafkalei mizikano. So this is very interesting. He learns it out from beard. Also remember again, in the pasuk by Nazir, there's double repetition. Because the pasuk's not by Nazir, it's by Mitzorah. Right? So we'll say, so the pasuk by the purification process of Mitzorah says, V'hayoba yom hashvi'i, yigalach es kol sa'aro, es rosho, v'es zikano. It's a double redundancy. The pasuk says he'll shave all of his hair. Okay. Then it says, and his head and his beard. So we'll say, so hair is redundant. We already spoke about that. Beard is also redundant. What do you do with beard? So listen, I watch this. It's fascinating. So the Gemara says, why does zikano? The fish shenemar, because the pasuk says, upas zikanam lo yigalechu. Watch this. So we'll say, so the pasuk says, they shall not go ahead and shave their beard. Shave their beard. Now we'll say, now what is this talking about? This is about by Kohanim. Right? By Kohanim, the Kohen. Pasuk says, lo yikirchu karcha berosham, upas zikanam lo yigalechu, obiv sarab lo yisretu sarate. So about the Kuhuna. Right? So the Kohen is not permitted to go ahead and literally bald himself, can't pull out his hair, right? He can't go ahead and shave his beard, and he can't make any lacerations on his skin as a sign of mourning for the dead. So we'll say, now watch this. So therefore, if you take a look, by the way, the Rush says over here, Lefi Shenamar, just take a quick look at the Rush. Lefi Shenamar is the last Rush on the page. Lefi Shenamar bekohanim, upas zikanam lo yigalechu, tamalomar zikano, ubekohanim, ika gam asay, now watch this. A Kohen in general, when it comes to not shaving his beard, has two things going on. There's a lo sase of pas zikanam lo yigalechu, and there's also an asay, the Rush says. What's the asay? Kidoshim yihiu. Part of Kidoshim yihiu, Rabbi say, is he's not supposed to destroy his beard. So a stam Kohen, right? A stam Kohen has an asay and a lo sase governing not destroying his beard. Okay? Watch this. Go back to the Gemara. So I would have thought, Yochel af Kohen Mitzorah came. So wasn't that watch? It's very exciting. So what happens if our Kohen becomes a Mitzorah? Now both say, by the way, so what happens as part of the Mitzorah? What happens as part of the Tzarah's purification process? Complete shaving. Whoa, a sec. So now I have an asay for the Kohen Mitzorah to shave his beard. Rabbi said, what is that butting up against? An asay and a lo saseh. An asay of Kidoshim Yiyu. A lo saseh of upas zikanam lo yigalechu. So what do I do? To which the Gemara says, Tamulomar zikano. Therefore, Rabbi said, the extra word zikano comes to teach you that even what? Even a Kohen who becomes a Mitzorah still has to shave his beard. Rabbi said, what is this an example of? Asay doche lo sa'aseh va'aseh. Beautiful. Uman demafik le rosho va'aseh v'lo sa'aseh. So we'll say, so if that's the case, so the one who uses rosho to teach me aseh and lo sa'aseh, leilif mizikano. Why does he learn that from mizikano? Why does he learn from rosho? Learn that from mizikano. Ulatamech, and according to your reasoning, the kaimalan ba'alma. They both say that in general, which we say amud beis. The lo asi aseh, the dachi is lo sa'aseh va'aseh. Leilif mikoin the dachi. So first of all, by the way, just want to point out that the generally accepted approach of saying is that what? Is that as much as we say asay doch lo sasay, in general, we say asay is not docha a lo sasay and an asay. In other words, we'll say when you have an asay versus on the other hand, on the other side, another asay and a lo sasay, generally one asay cannot be docha a lo sasay and an asay. So why don't you say from all of these cases? So just before we go on, I just want to point out that we've got two cases over here, right? We've got now this zikano teaching me that halacha l'maisa, the asay of the mitzorah shaving is docha the asay and lo sasay of kahuna. Right? That normally a Kohen has an asay that tells him grow his beard, a lo sasay that tells him don't shave your beard. And now when that very same Kohen becomes a mitzorah, what's the halacha? He's got to shave everything. What does that show you? Asay is docha lo sasay va'asay. So if it says the Gemara, why don't you make that a paradigmatic example and say that in general, every case, asay is docha lo sasay va'asay. To which the Gemara says, Ella mikoin lo yafinan. In general, again, I will say you cannot go ahead and learn out general paradigmatic halachas from the Kohen. Why not? Shekein lav she'eno shave bakol. Ultimately, and I will say because it is a lav in the kahuna that is not shave to everyone. Rosa, who doesn't it apply to? Women. Doesn't apply to women. In other words, I will say, the din of hashchasas hazakan, right, the din of destroying the beard, does not go ahead and apply to women. To which the Gemara says, if that's the case, Nazir mikoin nami lo yolif, you also can't learn out Nazir from Kohen. Why? Shekein lav shein shava bakol. Same idea, I will say, because once again, halach l'meiz, we're talking about a lav that does not apply to everyone equally, i.e. women aren't included. Okay? Uman dimokim lahai rosho ben Nazir lamali zikanas. Let's just round out the drasha. So according to the opinion, that learns out Rosho, right? Rosho, why does he need zikano? In other words, Rabbi say, halacha l'maisa. In other words, remember, the one who was using Rosho, this is first brisa, the one who was using Rosho to teach me that ultimately an asay can be docha, a lo saseh an asay. So remember again, the first opinion said, what do you use Rosho for? Rosho teaches me that even a Nazir who became a Metzora still has to shave. What's the chiddush there? Remember again, what does a Nazir have? What does a Nazir have? A Nazir has an asay of grow out your hair, a lo saseh of don't shave your hair, and now now he becomes a Metzora, and now the Metzora tells him he has an asay to shave his head. How do you know he's supposed to do it? Rosho teaches that he does it. Therefore, Rosho already teaches me that asay is docha lo saseh va'aseh. If that's the case, what does he need zikano for? So it's very interesting. Zikano matamad lomar. Why do you need beard? The Vishan Emar upas zikanam lo yigalechu. Because we'll say the pasuk says that ultimately the Kohen is not supposed to shave his beard. Yochol af Kohen mitzora kain. You might have thought that this is also true when you have a Kohen who's a mitzora. Tamad lomar zikano. Therefore, we'll say the pasuk says zikano. Ultimately, again, he has to shave. Even the Kohen who is mitzora has to shave his beard. Incredible. So says the Gemara, uminalan dibitar. And how do I know halacha l'maisa that it applies ultimately to a razor? Tisanya upas zikanam lo yigalechu. So we'll say. So in other words, now we're switching. We're pivoting in the pivot, which was already in the previous pivot. In other words, we'll say, meaning what? So now, how do I know? Talking about the prohibition for a Kohen to destroy his beard. How do I know that dafka applies to a razor? Says the Gemara, "Disanyo pas zikanam lo yigalechu." So Rabbi, I just want to point out. Now remember, the word yigalechu, Rabbi, means what? Right? Giluach means shaving. Remember, there are different words the Torah could use. You could use the word cutting. You could use the word balding, right? Like karcha, right? Giluach dafka means shaving. Yochel af gilchu b'misparayim. You might have thought that maybe the Kohen would be prohibited to cut his beard even with scissors. Talmud lo, sorry. Yochel. So the Gemara says Yochel af gilchu b'misparayim yechayv. Talmud lomar lo sashchis. The pasuk says he shall not destroy. Shall not destroy. So destruction sounds like, again, when you cut with scissors, you could shorten, but you're not really destroying. If that's the case, what if he shaved, right, with a plane? Pretty painful, right? But what if he shaved with a plane? That's hashchasa. Talmud lomar upaas zikanam lo yigalechu. So I'll say, therefore, the Torah uses the notion of giluach. Ezu giluach sheish bo hashchasa. They will say, what is the type of shaving which has associated with it a sense of destruction, right? A sense of destruction. In other words, what's the type of shaving? Ultimately, that's good. Right? What ultimately, again, is the type of shaving that has associated with it a hashchas, a sense of destruction? Havi omer ze tar. Ultimately, again, this refers to a razor. Good. So I'll say, so going back, and the one who uses Rosho just to teaching a regular lav. Rabbi Silber again, what does it mean teaching a regular lav? Remember, there was an opinion that said that Rabbi said, what does Rosho do? Remember, according to the second opinion, Hakafas kol harosh, or actually the first opinion, Hakafas kol harosh is an Isur d'oraisa. right? And therefore, I will say, remember again, in a regular case of Mitzorah, what do you have going on over here? An asay versus a los asay. What's the asay for Mitzorah? What's the asay? Shave your head. What's the los asay? Don't shave your head. Right, don't round the corners, which refers even to a full head shaving. So if that's the case, again, why do you need both Rosho and Zikano? To which the Gemara says, Mashma, so the Zikano comes to teach me, L'mitri lav greda, Umashma l'mitri lo sasei v'asei. So I'll say because Zikano because Rosho teaches me, Asei docha lo sasei. Zikano teaches me that what? Asei docha lo sasei v'asei. Has the ability to do both. Hilchach, Shakolhu, Vyavoshneim. So I will say ultimately again, if that's the case, halacha I said both drushes ultimately again are legitimate drushes and they're both needed. Kohen min Nazir lo yalif, shekein yeshna b'shela. So I'll say, so in reality, remember as we said before, you cannot learn out the case of Kohen from Nazir. Why? Because I will say ultimately they're not the same. How so? Because Nazir could be revoked. Nazir, right? B'shela. Nazir can be revoked. Versus, of course, Kahuna, which does not have the ability to do so. To Nazir mi Kohen lo yalif, so again, Nazir from Kohen can't be learned out, right? I should say you cannot learn out Nazir from Kohen. Why? Shekein lav shino shalabakol. Ultimately, again, because it's a lav that doesn't apply to everyone equally. Uba'alma lo yafinan minayu. And ultimately, in general, I will say, you cannot learn out from these cases. Then in general, we would say that asay is docha lo sasei v'asei. Because of the questions and contradictions or challenges that we posed previously. Beautiful. Okay, Abosai. So now a lot just happened over here. So let's talk a little halacha l'maisa, right? So Abosai. So first of all, a really great sugya where again we're introduced ultimately again to the sugya of asay docha lo sasei, asay docha lo sasei va'asei, right? So we have all of that so far. What we also have Abosai is the whole sugya of hakafa. Right? How is hakafa going to work? Is hakafa's kalarosh ne'esodoraisa or not? Right? So I'll say, so these are all the outstanding issues. So I'll say, let's talk about hakafa for just a moment. So I'll say, so the Shulchan Aruch, because again, remember, the halachas of hakafa rounding out the corners are a very shayach halacha l'maisa sugya. So the Shulchan Aruch in Yaredeya, Simin Kuf Pei Aleph Sif Beis, right? It's as follows: Bein shegilach hapeos bilvad, bein shegilach kalarosh im hapeos chayiv. We paskin halacha l'maisa hakafas kol harosh shma hakafa. So I'll say whether you go ahead and you shave off the corners or you shave your entire head, halacha l'maisa, that is an isur d'oraisa. So it says hakafas kol harosh shma hakafa. Okay, we'll say not only that. Listen to this. That's halacha base. That's halacha base. Okay, listen to this. Halacha dalit. So we'll say this is going back to yesterday's sugya. Halacha dalid. Kam hanikov. So actually, let me go out of order a little bit. Halacha hey. Hamakif es hakatan chayiv. So we'll say, so by the way, halacha l'maisa, if you go ahead and you cut off the corners of the head, right? You round out the corners of the head of a katan. Ultimately, again, one is chayiv. Now we'll say, now remember again, who's chayiv? The barber, right? The barber is chayiv. So you are not allowed to round out the corner of a child's head. He says, now I will say, now what he does say, however, again, the katan mutter lios nikaf mina oved kochavim. But a child is permitted to get his head, like the corners cut from an akum, which is a whole interesting discussion. That's the Ramah. We'll just focus on the mechaber. Salacha l'maisvos. Remember again, this was the exchange yesterday between Rav Adar bar Ava and Rav Huna. Right, Rav Huna's kids, their sides were shaved. Rav Adar bar Ava said, "Who's doing that? Who's doing that for them?" Rav Huna responded, "My wife, Chova." So we'll say we pass halacha l'maisa that you cannot round out the head of the corners, right? The corners of a child's head. However, halacha vav, isha eina b'mitzvas hakafa. Ultimately, again, a woman, however, is not subject to the laws of hakafa. So if a woman wants to shave her head, right, and round out the corners of her head, that is absolutely permitted. So I'll say one last halacha dalid. So here I will say the Shulchan Aruch says, Gam hanikaf chayiv im siya b'davar shemata atzma lov la'kifo. I will say, listen to this. Halacha l'maisa. I will say, not if you are receiving a haircut. in which you go ahead and get your sides shaved, even though again you're not the one cutting the hair. If you are enabling the barber to do so, you are chayiv for that as well. See, the Shulchan gives the example, shematat, right? The barber tells you, move your head like this, move your head like that, right? If you are, obviously, if you're shaved against your will, that's not the Isha Daraisa, right? But Lamaisa, if you are participatory in the haircut, ultimately, again, that is the Isha Daraisa as well. Both sides. So those are all the halachas of hakafa, right? All the halachas of hakafa. I will say again, halach, fine. So now we have that. Shulchan Aruch, Yer Deis Mikuf Pei Aleph. What about in the world of Asay Docha Lo Sasei? So what's that way we paskin is? Asay Docha Lo Sasei. General, we hold that way. Except when, like Rava said, when it doesn't have to be that way. In other words, Asay is Docha Lo Sasei, or say when you have no choice. The only way for me to fulfill my Asay is through the violation of the Lo Sasei, I have a right to do that. But like Rava said, if there's the ability to go ahead and do that, then what? Or I should say, if there's the ability to perform the asay without violating the los asay, then halacha l'maisa, ultimately again I don't violate the los asay. Incredible. I will say furthermore, generally we've asked asay is not doche los asay la'asay. There are exceptions. I will say, what are the exceptions? The exceptions are the cases we learned today, right? So the exceptions could be a Kohen who becomes a Mitzorah. That since there is an asay to shave the hair, that could go ahead and overcome the lo saseh and asay of kahuna, right? Or halacha l'maaseh, again, other cases. So again, where you have specific drushes to enable that, then it becomes permitted. But halacha l'maaseh in general, we will say as much as asay docha lo saseh, we will say that an asay is not docha a lo saseh and an asay. And I will say one last piece. So that's all of the halacha l'maaseh, the hashkafa l'maaseh. I will say, we've mentioned this before, but it's kedai to repeat it. So I will say, ultimately, again, the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, the interpretation of Asay Docha Lo Saseh is a beautiful idea. I will say, generally, the pathway for spiritual growth is Surmei Ravi Asay Tov. Right? In general, if a person really wants to experience real growth in life, first I have to unload the negative things that are holding me back. Surmei Ra, get away from the negative, and then Asay Tov. And we know this from our own lives. Go ahead, distance yourself from the things that are holding you back. Let go of the sheretz, right, before you go into the mikvah, right, because that's the only way, ultimately, that I can be mitar myself. But sometimes in life, we spoke about this in the Hasidic Shir on Thursday night as well, sometimes in life, I know that there are things that are holding me back, right, I know that there is Ra, but I'm not yet able to go ahead and deal with it. It's just a function of life. I know that there are inconsistencies. I know that there are negativities. I know that there are things that are wrong, but I just don't yet have the ability to really fully deal with them. What do you do in that case? What do you do when you can't start with Sur Meirah for whatever the reason? Says the Rebbe, Asay, Docha Lo Saseh. He'll say sometimes in life, the Asay Tov is Docha the Sur Meirah. Sometimes in life, if I just can't deal with the negative, okay, then just, you know what? Bolster yourself with a healthy dose of positivity. Asi asay v'docha lo saseh. I will say, which asay? The asay of asay tov. I will say, so sometimes in life when you're not ready to deal with your negativity, you're not ready to deal with the stuff that's misfiring, okay, so just envelop yourself in good. Do more good. Push yourself harder. Learn more. Daven more. Do more chesed. Give more tzedakah. Do whatever you have to do. Because sometimes Rabbi say, the way to enable yourself to go ahead and deal with the negative things is to push yourself out of the rut of negativity through the performance of a ridiculous, voluminous amount of good. Sometimes you need asay to be docha the lo saseh. I need to bolster myself with the asay tov in order to be able to find the strength to finally do the Surmei Ra. So stop over here for today. Perhaps we'll pick up new sugya tomorrow. Shkoyach. All right, Chavron Zoom, have a great day, everyone. Have a great day.